A little girl was excited for her first plane trip, but when a lightning strikes the aircraft and she is the only one who can save everyone, her world changes forever. The airport was as busy as ever when Kate and her 5-year-old daughter Jane arrived to embark on their first trip to Orlando. It would be their first trip to Disney World. Mother and daughter were dressed comfortably, ready to face long hours on the plane. "I'm so happy, Mommy, I really want to meet Mickey," said the little girl, her eyes shining with excitement. "Me too, love. This trip is going to be very special and we're going to have a lot of fun together," said the mother, smiling. Kate walked through the airport while Jane jumped up and down, unable to control her energy. They visited some stores and ended up buying decorative stickers of Disney characters to stick on their suitcases. Already getting into the mood for the trip, they also stopped to appreciate a group of musicians who were playing a cheerful music. Jane, unable to contain herself, began to dance, attracting the attention of other travelers watching the performance, and they applauded her. Kate, like a proud mother, recorded the whole scene and shared it with her family. When it was time to board, Jane helped her mother with the bags and the attendant at the sticker store, seeing that Jane was a very special little girl, gave her a sticker that was just as special. "Look, Mom, I got a Bon Voyage sticker," she said, showing it to Kate. Her mother smiled and said, "Oh, that's very nice of her, darling. Let's put it in your passport, it'll look great." After going through the necessary procedures, mother and daughter entered the boarding area to wait for their flight. They found a small play area for children and Jane played there while they waited. Jane had a lot of fun with other children who were also waiting for their flight with their parents. Finally, the time for their flight arrived, and Kate and Jane grabbed their suitcases and headed for the line to board the plane. Jane asked her mother how airplanes could fly so high in the sky, and Kate explained everything. "The plane is like a big bird, right, Mom?" asked the little girl, admired by the idea. "That's right, my darling," replied the woman, smiling. When it was their turn, they boarded the plane and were met by a very friendly stewardess who helped them settle into their seats. Jane couldn't help herself, and all she could do was stare out of the plane's window, waiting for it to take off. "Look, Mom, we're going to fly," said the little girl, very excited. "That's right, honey, we're going to fly all the way to Disney World," said the woman, squeezing the little girl's hand affectionately. The pilot made the announcements, confirming the weather conditions, flight time, and passing on the appropriate safety information while the stewardesses presented the instructions. Kate helped her daughter to put on her seat belt while the little girl tried to pay extra attention to the instructions that were given. "All right, now we are ready to fly," said the mother, adjusting her own belt. The plane began to take off slowly, and Jane could barely contain her excitement. She looked frantically out of the window, following every movement of the aircraft. Very curious, she asked her mother all sorts of questions about the plane. "Mom, how can such a big, heavy plane fly?" "Well, honey, the airplane has wings and engines that make it fly," the mother explained, and then the plane started to go faster and faster, and suddenly it was high in the sky, flying. Kate and Jane felt a wave of excitement as they saw the houses and cars getting smaller and smaller. Mother and daughter held hands, sharing such a magical experience. When the plane reached a certain height, the lights went up, indicating that the passengers could move around freely. Kate grabbed some paper and crayons to entertain Jane. during the trip very excited about her trip. Jane drew a beautiful colorful plane with the word Disney written on it. After a while a stewardess passed by, serving drinks and snacks. Jane chose an orange juice and a packet of cookies. Kate was also very excited. This would be a trip that would remain in little Jane's memory as a very special moment. Between the two of them, Kate had been saving money for a long time to arrange this magical trip for her daughter. It would be Jane's first trip to Disney, and Kate wanted everything to be perfect. She wanted this trip to be a time of relief for both of them, even more so after the difficult time they had been through. Kate had recently divorced, and this deeply affected the little girl who missed having her mother and father at home together. Kate had suffered a lot too. She had to find a balance between working, raising her daughter on her own, and dealing with everything she was going through. Hey darling, I know our lives have been very difficult lately, but things will get better. This trip is going to be a lot of fun, and we'll be able to spend a lot of time together, said the mother, trying to lift up the spirits. I know Mom, I do miss Dad, and it's hard, but it's okay, we'll have a lot of fun, said the little girl. Over the last few months, Kate had done everything possible to take care of her daughter on her own and keep the household routine as normal as possible. She tried her best to spend more quality time with her daughter, doing fun things to make up for her father's absence. She also maintained a good relationship with her ex-husband so that Lily could see her father whenever she wanted, and father and daughter also had a good relationship. However, there were still some misunderstandings between Kate and her ex-husband and Jane, who realized that not everything was okay, was being affected by this situation. I'm sorry for everything, darling. I promise you that when we get back from our trip I'll make things right with your father, okay? The mother promised. I know Mommy, I love you, said the little girl, hugging her mother. The trip to Disney was a way for Kate to show her love and dedication for Jane. All she wanted was for her daughter to have a magical moment and forget about the problems they were facing. She just wanted Jane to feel loved and safe. When we get to Disney, we'll go to all the attractions and we will meet all the characters you want. It's going to be a lot of fun, Kate said, excited. Yay, it's going to be the best trip ever, said the little girl with a smile on her face. But everyone on the plane couldn't have imagined that in a matter of hours their lives would change forever. The trip to Orlando would take approximately 8 hours, and everything seemed to be going well. The passengers were all settled in their seats, enjoying the long journey. Some were sleeping, some were watching movies, and some were commenting on their destinations. However, after almost 4 hours of flying, a sudden storm began to form and the plane began to experience turbulence. Because of the storm, the pilot was unable to contact the control tower and was forced to make quick decisions to ensure everyone's safety. The turbulence kept going and all the passengers started to get scared. Mom, I'm scared, said Jane, squeezing her mother's hand. It's all right, it's just turbulence. It'll pass soon, don't worry about it. Okay, said Kate, trying to calm her daughter down, but she was scared too. To regain contact with the control tower, the pilot would have to get out of the storm, increasing the plane's altitude. But what nobody expected was that while they were trying to increase altitude, the plane would be struck by lightning, and all the aircraft's control systems would be compromised. The lights went out, and for a moment everything was silent. The oxygen masks fell off and the plane began to shake violently. The passengers began to despair and screamed in fear. The stewardesses were fighting against the noise, trying to explain the correct way to use the oxygen masks. "We are going to die," people screamed, terrified. "Please keep calm and stay in your seats. Everyone needs to pay attention. Put on your seatbelts and put on your oxygen masks immediately," order to stewardess. All that fuss only made Jane even more frightened. "Everything will be okay, darling, let's just do what the kind girl said. Let's put on our seatbelts and oxygen masks." "Okay," said Kate, following the instructions given. The next few minutes were filled with terror and despair. The pilot and his crew struggled to avoid crashing, trying to reconnect the planned systems to call the control tower for help. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your pilot. I've come to inform you that we've been struck by lightning and are having technical problems at the moment. We have lost contact with the tower, but we are working to resolve the problem. Please remain seated and follow the crew's orders," announced the pilot, trying to keep his voice steady. The stewardesses went from seat to seat, checking if everyone had their seat belts and oxygen masks put on properly. The frightened passengers said little prayers or cried silently, seeking consolation at such a difficult time. "The plane is going to crash and we will die," shouted a desperate woman. "We're going to die, we're going to die," echoed someone else, crying. Little Jane was terrified. She held on tightly to her mother, trying to understand what was happening. Despite the critical situation, Kate tried to remain calm in order to reassure her daughter and protect her. And then suddenly the plane began to lose altitude rapidly and the passengers started screaming in despair. The pilot announced that they were doing everything they could to control the situation, but that everyone should prepare for the worst. "I love you, Jane. No matter what happens, we'll be together," said the mother, hugging her daughter with all her strength. "I love you too, Mom," replied the little girl, sobbing. The pilot tried to keep the aircraft as stable as possible while the co-pilot tried to contact the control tower. "This is Flight B789 to ATC. We passed through AUM Nimbus. The aircraft is damaged. Mayday, mayday, mayday. The aircraft was struck by lightning. We lost control. We need help. Mayday, mayday." The co-pilot continued with his voice trembling. The stewardesses got ready and sat down in their seats, also putting on their oxygen masks. They kept trying to calm the passengers who were desperately screaming. Cries, screams and prayers filled the atmosphere of the cabin with even more despair. Even in the face of chaos, the crew maintained their professionalism and trying to calm down the passengers. Kate held Jane against her chest, praying that somehow they could get out of this situation alive. The despair was palpable and everyone thought that moment would be the end. "We're out of time, we need to do something now," exclaimed the pilot, breaking out in a cold sweat. A pull up, and after so much effort the pilots managed to stabilize the plane. They looked at each other in relief, but they still needed to get the plane systems back online. "The plane is stable. We need to communicate our situation to the tower now," said the pilot, trying to stay calm. The passengers were desperate and in shock. They cried, they shouted, they prayed in the hope that everything would work out soon. The pilot and his team were discussing what they should do to recover the plane systems. The aircraft was stable for the moment, but if something wasn't done immediately, the plane would crash and that would be the end for everyone. "We have to find a solution. The plane won't be stable for long. If we don't do anything, the plane will fall," all said the pilot, worried. While they were discussing possible Solutions. A light came on in the control panel indicating a possible problem with the cables connecting the electrical system. Luckily the co-pilot was also an engineer and had technical knowledge of the airplane's electrical construction. If we could reconnect the cables in the maintenance compartment, maybe we could regain control of the plane. It was a very good solution, but there was only one problem. The maintenance compartment could only be accessed from the outside of the plane. However, the co-pilot knew that inside the plane there was a small opening and someone very small could access the maintenance compartment. Through there it's an impossible job for us adults, but maybe a small child could do it right, he said positively. The stewardesses then explained the situation to the passengers, saying that they needed a child to access the maintenance compartment. Only then would they be able to regain control of the aircraft and save everyone. Without thinking twice, Kate raised her hand, pointing to her daughter. My daughter is small, maybe she can help. The stewardess approached Kate and explained the situation again in a way that Jane could understand. She said that she needed the
little girl to connect the correct cables so that the plane could start working again. It's a bit scary, Jane, but you are our only hope. Are you brave enough to try it? Asked the stewardess. Jane hesitated, but her mother encouraged her. You are the bravest person I know, Jane. You can do it. Jane understood that she would do something very important, so she agreed to help. And so the stewardess took the mother and daughter to the pilot, and he showed her where she would have to enter to connect the cables. The cables needed to be reconnected in a specific sequence, and the co-pilot would explain everything to Jane over the radio. We're all rooting for you, Jane said the stewardess while the little girl was preparing to enter the compartment. Kate, very proud, hugged her daughter and encouraged her before she entered the compartment. Jane, full of courage and despite her young age, knew she couldn't make a mistake because everyone's life was in her small hands. With a determined look, the little girl entered the narrow compartment despite the fear of all responsibility she had on her shoulders. Jane began to crawl through the tight space towards the loose cables. The compartment was very cramped and dark. It was difficult to breathe, and Jane could only see, thanks to a small flashlight that the stewardess gave her. Meanwhile, the passengers prayed and spoke words of encouragement to the little girl, knowing that their fate was in her hands. Kate waited anxiously for her daughter, praying silently that she would succeed. When Jane reached the maintenance compartment, the co-pilot started talking to her, guiding her to find the right cables. He spoke calmly with a soft voice, trying to explain everything as simply as possible so that little Jane wouldn't get confused. Okay, Jane, do you see the blue wire? Can you plug it into the blue hole for me? He guided patiently. Yes, I can. Done, she replied, scared with her little hands trembling. The little girl plugged the wire into the right place. The compartment was full of cables of all colors. Little Jane was worried that she wouldn't be able to complete her mission. Jane took a deep breath and concentrated solely on the co-pilot's instructions. She had to do everything correctly. The fate of the plane was in her hands. Meanwhile, Kate, the pilot, the stewardesses and all the passengers were tensely waiting for the co-pilot and Jane to finish their big mission now and then. Kate encouraged her daughter by telling her to take it easy and breathe deeply. The co-pilot continued to instruct her, speaking in a caring and understanding tone. You're doing great, Jane. Now can you plug the red cable into the red hole for me, please? Yes, sir, Jane replied, doing as the pilot had instructed even though she was scared. Jane knew she had to save everyone and she did what she was told very carefully. The silence in the cabin was only interrupted by the co-pilot's voice, giving instructions and Jane's little voice responding accordingly. Okay, now. See the yellow cable, can you plug it into the yellow hole, said the co-pilot. Admiring the little girl's courage, time didn't seem to pass. Everyone was apprehensive, but little by little Jane managed to connect all the cables in the correct order, and then it was time to connect the last wire, the green one. All eyes were fixed on the cabin and the silence was deafening. You did great, Jane. Are you ready for the last one? Just put the green cable in the green hole and it's done, said the co-pilot, his voice carrying the hope they all shared. Jane, with her sweaty little hands and a pounding heart, connected the last wire. At that very moment the lights on the plane came back on and the control system went back online. A huge sigh of relief and joy washed over everyone on board. Yeah, everyone cheered and applauded as the little girl left the compartment. Kate cried with pride and joy while helping her daughter get out. My precious daughter, you were brilliant. My love, said the mother, hugging her. Little heroine, you did it, Jane, you saved us all, said the stewardess with tears in her eyes. Jane was still a little frightened, but she was happy that she had managed to complete her mission and save everyone. The pilot, in an emotional voice, thanked the little girl. Over the radio, the crew and all the passengers, thank you, Jane, you are a brave girl, and thanks to you we can continue our flight safely. You save us all. Jane could finally take a big weight off her shoulders and feel safe and happy again. She was very relieved that it was all over, even though she was afraid. She faced a ULT situation and with great determination she saved the lives of everyone on the plane, and so the journey proceeded without further problems. When the plane finally landed, the airport was in great commotion as all the employees already knew about Jane's great feat and how she had saved everyone's lives. Passengers and airport staff cheered for Jane as she walked out of the plane, smiling from ear to ear as a reward for their bravery. The airline presented Jane and her mother with free airline tickets for a year. Finally, mother and daughter were able to make their dream trip to Disney, where they made unforgettable memories and had the best time of their lives. The story of Jane's courage became known worldwide, serving as proof that even the smallest of us can do great things, and from that moment on, Jane was known as the girl who saved an airplane with her bravery and determination, even in the face of fear and danger, and became a true hero. If you like the story, surely the next video that's appearing on your screen will move you too. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up and activate the notification bell so you won't miss any of our next videos. A huge kiss and see you in the next story.